Hello, David. How are you?
Good. 10 news. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, sweet. Sorry about little hiccups this morning.
No problems, mate. No problem. What year is that behind you? That was when I was there. I think that's the sort of jersey we had.
Yeah, that's New South Wales Waratahs 1994, the 94
Yep.
jersey. So,
Yeah, I can see Tomsy's name at the top and Timmy Wallace and
yeah,
a few of the others. Yeah.
Darren Junee.
Yeah.
Looks like Mark Catchpole, Tony Dempsey.
Yep.
Sam Payne, Matt Burke. I think some of the coaches must have signed it too, but look, it looks like Michael Lynott signed it. He never played for the Waratahs. So
No.
Trying to work out whose signature. One underneath the Waratah itself is a little bit hard to tell. Alistair Murdoch. So
yeah,
there's good names, very good players there compared to what there has been in the past. So what there is now.
Yeah. Yep.
So thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate that. So for everyone that's watching now, I have Dave Moffett on today, and what were the roles you carried out? You're a former head of New Zealand Rugby, the CEO of New South Wales Rugby and New Zealand Rugby. You're the CEO of the NRL during the Super League period. That's correct, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it had been sorted out, sort of, by the time I got there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you looked after Sports England, which after the 2000 Olympics, they wanted to be competitive on the world level, and you helped really propel them to being one of the major powers in World Olympics and stuff like that. So by changing the way they manage their sports.
Yeah.
And then you went to Welsh Rugby. And when you went to Welsh Rugby, that wasn't a basket case, but it was in difficult circumstances, and you turned that around as well. So you've made that one of the best rugby unions in the world.
It was a basket case, Duckman. It was financially in deep doo-doo. They were trading whilst insolvent, and they had 12 professional teams. So it was a basket case, but within 2 years, we turned it around. Was making about £3.5 million profit. We'd renegotiated the debt to a manageable level, and they won the first Grand Slam in 27 years after we got down to 4 teams. So yeah, I was quite proud. More than being proud at the time, I think I'm really pleased with the legacy of that, because Wales continues to be a strong contender now in world rugby terms, but they're still a bit of a shambles off the field.
Yes, that's not real helpful. So I got told the club set up back in the early 2000s. So in between World Cups, they were all at war. So probably because they were trading insolvent, they were at war. They weren't doing particularly well in Heineken Cup and all the different sorts of levels they were in. They just united. They got this. You helped get their stuff together. And
no, well, Welsh rugby will always be at war with itself. It'll never change.
Yeah.
Because of the parochialism of the valleys, especially the little towns in the valleys, and they think they've got a mortgage on parochialism, but then they don't understand the parochialism between Queensland and New South Wales, or between Auckland and Christchurch over in New Zealand. And parochialism can be a good thing, or it can be a devastating thing. And in Wales, it's devastating because they don't put aside their little valley towns' parochialism for the good of the nation, and in a rugby sense. And I don't think that'll ever change. So despite that, though, the national team has done well in in the last little while. They won the competition, the Six Nations, again this year. So, you know, that's pleasing to see. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were hoping to get the Grand Slam, win everything, win every game, and then France knocked that on the head, and
Yeah, they
France
did.
lost to Scotland, so which was a good thing. So,
yes.
I knocked them off the perch a bit there. So, you're involved at the moment in Real Rugby. So, can you give everyone a bit of a rundown exactly what Real Rugby is and the concept? Because I've got notes from when chatted to you last time, and
Yeah.
I really like the sound and the concept of it, and I think the idea can take off because rugby, I think, is at a point where it's a bit on the stale side of things, except at the international level, and it needs a bit of a polish and shine to do something to make the game more attractive to the general public in particular.
Well, we set out to make the game safer and simpler. We're not trying to usurp 7s or 15s. We sit right in the middle. It's 12 aside, but it's an authentic game. It's not like 7s or the version of it called 10s. It's 30-minute halves, and that's for a reason. It's going to be a very fast game to play and a referee. You know, we've focused on the safety aspect of it and making it simpler to actually understand, so that people in the grandstand can actually understand what's going on. Players and referees will find it easier. We'll always have the problem with the coaches, and I've got a big down on the way the game is at the moment, because I think it's entirely down to the way the game's coached. And the coaches will, you know, will get up in arms and say, "Oh no, it's not. It's the referee's fault." Well, having been a first-class referee, I know what happens. The referees eventually, they start out with good intentions, but then they get worn down and they just go back to the old ways. So it's simple from that perspective. I'm sure that parents out there are going to like it, because we take it from being a collision sport with almost no contestability, as it is in the 15-a-side game at the moment, to one of being a contact sport, but where there is a lot of opportunity to contest for possession. And I think once you get those elements into a game, then we can get it back to real rugby.
Yeah, that's good because it'll speed the game up. And as I said when we chatted before, you want to make the game more entertaining and exciting. And like at the moment, I'm 6'5", 150 something kilos. Rugby is built for that, but
yeah,
you don't want to have a 13-year-old kid that's literally 60 kilos or something like that, and that'd be like an average weight. 60 kilos, 5'7", against someone that's 6'5" and 125. And the thing is, you're getting that in that age bracket now, which didn't before. You want to be.
I was talking to a good friend of mine yesterday. He was a fellow referee, and he's still involved with the referees in some capacity. But his son went to a private school in Sydney, and he was on the sideline watching his son playing against another private school, which basically had set about buying premierships, and they were filled with 115 kilo players. And his son came off and has never played rugby to this day again, because, you know, and the interesting thing is that my friend said that he was genuinely frightened for his son's well-being. And I think we're getting a lot of that. Now, that's up to World Rugby to fix that up. But one of the things that we do is we bring in the fatigue factor, right? So that, you know, and we also are not, we say you can have 8 replacements, but you can only use 4.
Yeah.
So gone will be the days of trucking on a half a forward pack with 15 minutes to go as impact players in a collision sport. You're going to have to be more judicious in your use of your replacements. And you know, this game is going to have to be played by and it still can be played. You could still play this game, but you're just going to have to make sure you're fit enough to play it. And that's what we want to achieve. But we'll see. I mean, we're hoping to play the game in the next couple of weeks as a trial, where we are also hoping to have it streamed so that we can get people to see it. So a couple of teams are going to be coached in it, and because in most areas it's going to be fairly easy for them to pick up, but not at the breakdown. The breakdown is a blight on the game at the moment, as we all see. And that's unfortunate because the existing World Rugby laws says that you can't go off your feet at the ruck. When was the last time we saw players on their feet? And that's what's in the law. And that's what I say about coaches. The coaches have looked at that law and say, nah, we don't want to play the game like that. We're going to play it like this. And World Rugby then says, oh, okay, rightio, if that's the way you want to play the game, instead of saying, well, go and find another game to coach.
Yeah.
Because it's a blight on the game. And we are actual fact are basically using the law that's in the book at the moment. You stay on your feet, and if you go off your feet, then you're going to get penalized. And then there'll be a contest for possession. That's going to be the biggest area, I think, for players to get to grips with the change, because at the moment they're just used to falling around on the ground and scrabbling around on what they call a ruck, which is nothing of the sort.
Yeah. So what I think needs to happen in the breakdown, looking at it at the moment from having been a player, I started on the wing even though I was so big. I was very quick and kick with both feet. You ended up in the forward pack. You knew you were going to wear studs back in the day, and that tidied up a lot of stuff that happens in the ruck. Unfortunately, they've improved the safety in the ruck by removing some of that. Now they've got more people that just go, I'm just going to interfere with everything by just laying here because nothing can happen.
But I argue that they've made the game more dangerous by allowing players to go off their feet, because what they then allowed was clearing out.
Yeah.
And we've seen some of the effects of that, and they say they've clamped down on that, but I still see it happening, and players getting injured. Whereas, well, we're saying you put your feet on a player, then you're going to be penalised. But you can only ruck the ball back, not the players back with your feet, and it'll take some time. But the whole essence of what we're trying to do is to increase ball in play time and ball in hand time. Yeah. So we're saying, if you don't want this this situation to occur where you might get rucked, then get the ball out of there quickly.
Yeah.
And Duckman, it's the same. It's the same with the maul. The maul is the only part of the game where you're legally allowed to be offside, or stopping a player from getting at the ball, because it's legal, and it goes against the ethos of the game.
Yeah.
We say you take the ball into the maul, that's fine, and then you can continue to move the maul down the field. If you move the ball back one player, like smuggling it back, the ball's got to be out of the maul in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And my friend said to me yesterday, but how are you going to know when the ball's moved back? I said, well, I suppose what you got to do is wear your glasses.
If the referee's at the breakdown, they're going to see it. So
yeah. I mean, it's so the whole concept of our game is to speed the game up and make it a contest.
Yep.
You take the idea, for example, that came in of, if you got a penalty and kick the ball into touch, you get to put into the line out.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a double penalty. The penalty's the penalty. What you do with that is up to you. The consequences of that are that you shouldn't get another benefit by throwing the ball into the line out. So we say the other team gets the ball. Now that's going to stop this bloody rubbish of them kicking the ball into the corner and rolling maul for tries.
Yeah.
They can do that if they win the throw against the head, but why should a team be penalized twice for one offense, which is what happens? Anyway, so those are all, and what for your viewers and listeners, you can go and see the rules at www.real.rugby. And that's not a misprint. It is real.rugby. We got the .rugby name, which has been a fantastic thing for us to have got. So
You've done a good job with that, because everyone else in the world tries to get anything .rugby or rugby at the end of it. .net, .co.uk, .au. It's hard. It's not easy to get the domain. So I don't know who owns it, but they're doing all right out of it. So
yeah, there's a company in New Zealand that owns that, and they also own .basketball. And when you apply,
really?
and when you apply for it, you have to actually you can't. It just doesn't come through automatically. They have a look at your organization to see if you actually deserve to have the .rugby domain name. So it's a good thing to have, and they make it difficult.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good. You don't want to just be throwing it out there, any Tom, Dick, and Harry, because otherwise you'll tarnish the name of the actual game. So,
well, I got an idea for you, Duckman.rugby, mate. That would be good, wouldn't it?
I reckon that'll kick on all right. That is good. Duckman.rugby. Get some. Anyone want to throw around some cash at the moment? I'm happy to buy some domain names and start trademarking some stuff. So hit me up.
Yeah.
So
that's basically what it's about. I'll just give you a few other quick ones for your viewers.
Yep.
In the area of safety, we're very, very hot on that. So taking the line out, no lifting in the line out. Now, it's okay, and it's not always okay at the very top levels, because we see some pretty bad things happening on, lifters being not supported and stuff. But at the lower levels, take it back to a jumping competition, not a lifting competition. So there's no lifting in the lineouts. There are no reset scrums. There's one go at a scrum. The referee, if the scrum goes down, the referee will give a free kick. Because it'll be easy to find. It's easy to see who's taken it down. But anyway, it's a free kick and on you go. No more reset scrums, boring. Us with 8-10 reset scrums, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's going to be safe. The ball's going to have to be put into the center of the down the center line, which is going to be a novelty for scrum halves. But what'll help that is that both hookers have got a hook for the ball. So that's going to make the job of the hooker back to what it really was. So they have to hook for it. If they don't, then there'll be a free kick.
Yeah.
So then if we go then to I've talked to you about the maul, and I've also talked to you about the breakdown and the scrum now. The other thing that we're doing is we're not allowing kick receivers to leave the ground to catch the ball. Nobody can. The kicker or the kicking team, because there's too many incidents. Somebody's going to break a neck one time because they've been taken out either deliberately or by mistake. So keep your feet on the ground, and that's another safety issue as far as we are concerned. But we're not taking contact out of it. It's a full contact game. Yeah. One of the biggest things, though, that we are bringing in is you cannot tackle above the waist.
Yeah, that's good, because at the moment you get too many big guys. I see it in subbies when I still play, and shoot shield last time I was playing. The big guys want to nut up against other big guys, and they don't care if it bounces side out, deal with the consequences later. But they'll literally just come through and throw 125, 130 kilos of player, anything. They don't care. They just know they're going for the big hit. You're not supposed to shoulder charge, but as long as they sort of make an attempt to tackle, they don't care. And you're knocking people out from that sort of stuff, because when you misjudge it, you get broken jaws and shoulders. You take people out sideways while they're not watching, and that's just terrible. So,
but that's the whole issue about this collision sport, right? And especially in the tackle. So, you've got these 225 kg guys hitting each other, coming to a shuddering stop. Your brain keeps moving inside your head. That's the problem, and so you're getting this cumulative effect. I'm not an expert in it, but I just say, well, that seems to me to be, a lot of what's happening. But I'll ask you a question, mate. When do you think we're going to see the first 1 ton pack? We're very close to it now. 1 ton pack. Now, nobody that I've come across is actually talking about the idea that actually we're going to see 1 ton packs very, very shortly, and so when you get 2 tons, if they're both around, 950, 1 ton, but 1 ton, 2 1-ton packs crashing into each other. But they don't crash so much, but they're still exerting a lot of pressure. That's where we're going with this obsession with size.
Yeah. Yes, right. It is crazy because it's just using the big players as weapons. Like, even when I coached, I had big guys when I coached the Blue Mountains in 4th grade and 2nd division. And to be honest with you, the other teams were intimidated by it because put these guys, their focus was stay in the middle of the park. When you get the ball in a good area, I'm going to use you to bulldoze people basically, and I'll make up for your shortcomings in fitness and that by keeping you in the middle of the park. We use them differently so they wouldn't both be on the same time because they didn't have the legs to both be on the same time. And it's got its own purpose, and the purpose was to run over people and crush them pretty much. So, and you're allowed to do it. Allowed to do it.
So I referred to rugby league as 5 tackle kick once, and which is what it is, right? Even now, I mean, that's what that game is. Unfortunately, our game has become kick and defend.
Yeah.
Because what we do is we say to these big players, crash it, and then when you can't get through, we'll kick it. Hope that they drop it or make a mistake. Then we'll get a scrum. And scrums these days are used for penalties. That's basically it. The other day I saw a scrum penalty given, and the winger from about 50 yards away ran in to congratulate the scrum because they got a penalty from it. I mean, that is bizarre and sends all the wrong messages as far as I'm concerned. And the other thing too is when we talk about size, right? Gerald Davis is a good friend of mine, the great Gerald Davis, Welsh. He started as a centre, became a winger. And he's a lot smaller than I am. He wouldn't get a game today, mate. And yet, he was one of the people that actually made me want to continue and play rugby because he was brilliant. JJ Williams, JPR, those guys from Wales, they were. And the problem that we've got in the game today, Duckman, I refer to it as McDonald's rugby. Okay. So no matter whether you go to a town, city, or a country, everybody wants to play the same way. Yeah. What has happened? Look, in Australia, what has happened to Australia's running game? I was at a lunch with Fab Fenton a couple of days ago, for Dick Marks has just launched a book, which everybody should go out and buy because it's having a bit of a pot shot. But, and he's a really good guy, Dick Marks, a rugby man through and through. One of those guys, when he dies, he just needs 2 words on his tombstone, rugby man, like Fab Fenton and those guys. And he got up and he recited his famous poem about running rugby, the game they play in heaven.
Yep.
We don't see that anymore. We don't see the Welsh flair and guile and pure brilliance anymore. We don't see the way the French play anymore. We don't see the way Scotland play. We don't see what made those teams so terrific to watch because they played differently. And now all we do is we see the same rubbish dished up time and time again. I have to say, though, that I think Brad Thorne up in Queensland is at least trying and succeeding in getting a more attractive game played and to be able to watch. The problem still, though, is that it's too difficult for people to actually be able to understand what's happening because, as we know, at the breakdown, you could give a penalty at every single breakdown. You could almost give a penalty at every single line-out. So, but at least he's giving it a go.
The one thing I'd like to see at a breakdown at the moment, so I'm a forward, so used to seeing people go flying in and all that sort of stuff. And I haven't done it myself. And then you get in the rucks and just like, I'm actually not doing anything in the breakdown.
No.
I'm just here putting the body in the way because I got coached to do that. And you realize your effectiveness is nothing. But what needs to really happen is sort of take a leaf out of the golden oldie style. You take the ball in, the ball goes to the down, goes to the ground. You get one contest at it. You didn't get it, bang, retreat, let the ball come out and move it. That will speed the game up a lot all on its own. So.
Yes, it would. But what we've seen at the moment is because it's so difficult to get the ball at the breakdown without giving away a penalty, oftentimes, what they're doing is they're not committing anybody to the breakdown any longer. They're all going off their feet, the 1, 2 or 3 players that are there. The rest are fanning out across the field. So there's no room, you know.
Yeah, you see guys, the referee says in the rule book that they want you to be like a plane taking off, not literally. I've seen a few planes take off into the air, feet through the air like a missile. So there's no staying connected to the ground anymore. So,
but the law book says that the game is to be played by players on their feet.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be nice, you know. If we get back to that, it'd be great.
Yeah, that's right. So I can go back to some of the other stuff you've been involved with rugby. So, what would you do to endear the game to the general public at the moment in rugby? Because it's waning in the country, to be honest with you. And when you were the CEO of New South Wales Rugby, I just want to give you a quote, but something you wrote in Rugby News. So, I read an article and it said the juniors were experiencing unprecedented growth for 30% in 2 years. So I'm thinking this must have been about 94, 95. And said
I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah. You also said the challenge for administrators is to keep up with the pace of the popularity of the sport and to build a sport that is exciting and natural choice for sponsors and fans. So how do we fix the discord with the game at the moment? So because it's clearly the 4th biggest sport in Australia, so out of the football codes, and it was people's natural choice behind cricket. Probably was the 2nd national sport people would follow on that in the early 2000s. Now that's been
I think it was always behind Aussie rules in Australia, but not worldwide, obviously. But and I like Aussie rules. I like rugby league. I like rugby. You know, I like all sports, but I'm put off rugby at the moment. I mean, that's a very complicated answer. I'm going to try and answer this very quickly for you. I was at the forefront of the game going professional because I was one of 5 people essentially that did the deal from our side with Rupert Murdoch, got all that $555 million US. And we thought that was terrific because we could at last pay the players. Who were being paid in all sorts of different ways, but not enough to actually make a career out of it. So that happened. What none of us foresaw was the degree to which, when the game became open, the degree to which rugby, for the professional rugby, would just dominate and suck up all of the resources to look after, what is it, 0.1% of the playing population of world rugby. And the game left the community game behind because all they were interested in doing, administrators, and I was guilty of that until I got to Wales and realized that, it was all very well to go from 12 to 4 teams, but if we didn't have a strong underlying club competitions, then that wasn't going to continue to work.
Yeah.
But that is still the case, right? It is still the case where professional rugby, for those small infinitesimal number of players, is gobbling up all the money. And now what we've seen with COVID is a lot of the unions are so strapped financially now, they're even having trouble keeping up with the payment of their players. And I'll get myself into trouble here with a guy who's, I think, doing a pretty good job at the Australian Rugby Union since he's come in, McLennan, the new chairman, and he's got a good CEO now with him, Andy Marinos.
Yep.
I'll get offside with them because I will have to say that there are too many players that haven't got the quality to be called professional rugby players. It's the same in rugby league. You know, I've watched some games in rugby league, and we now got this 2-tier rugby league competition, and they want to expand it. I mean, I think that would be great for rugby if they did that, because it's just going to, it's going to make it even harder for that competition to be a competitive competition, which is what you want in any sort of competition. So from a rugby perspective, I'd like rugby league to expand, because it's going to give rugby a better opportunity. But rugby's got too many teams for the number of players, and we're seeing that this year with, New South Wales Rugby should be the strongest rugby union. Look at them.
Yep.
They lost again, only by 2 points, this time to the Brumbies last night. They parted ways with Rob Penny, which didn't surprise me, but they should part ways with many more people. The entire board should go. They were the people that put him there. They're the people that have actually been there for so many guys like Roger Davis. He should resign today because he's been responsible for making decisions that have got them where they are.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so have the board. But the interesting thing, rugby around the world, and I've been around the world, is that the coach will go, the players that go, but the board goes on forever. And they're the ones making the decisions.
That's one thing.
But it's not all bad news, because you've got some good guys now, I think, going to turn around Rugby Australia. What they need to do, I think, is, you know, is to face up to the reality. They haven't got enough players for 5 teams. And and what they're doing by having 5 teams is they are not deliberately, but they are affecting the rugby brand. Because you look at the number of people that turn out to watch New South Wales. People are not in love with them anymore.
Yeah, right.
They're not in love with rugby. So you've got to get them to love rugby. And what helps is winning. So if you could go back, I'm not saying you go, you know, and the chairman said that you can't, you know, contract to greatness, but you can. And I showed that with Wales. Not forever. Go back to 3 teams with a plan to increase it when you can. You've got to get people to become lovers of the game again. So that means you've got to change some of the laws. You've got to have even competition. That means, and I've been advocating this since about 2007, a strong trans-Tasman competition, right? New Zealand's most likely got not enough players for 5 really good teams, you know? So they should have 4. They should be 3 from Australia and perhaps 1 from the islands. Make a 10-team competition to start with. Yep. And that would be fantastic, because it would be competitive. It would be something, it would be even, it would be authentic. And then have a plan to expand. You don't have to do it all at once. And the 2 teams, I'm afraid to say this, but the 2 teams that I would let go would be Melbourne and the Brumbies, because the Brumbies is in the middle of New South Wales, right? The ACT. Yep. And that's going to annoy the hell out of the Brumbies supporters. But there's an opportunity. There'll be perhaps an opportunity in the future. But the game has got to move on. So I'd have New South Wales, Queensland, Western Australia.
Yeah.
And because you've got Twiggy Forrest over there with a lot of money, is prepared to invest in it.
Yeah. Should Rugby Australia put more emphasis on the club competition, like had the NRC there a couple of times, and I just don't think they gave it any love or respect that deserved, and it was never going to work because they didn't. So they treated it like a 3rd-class competition. And
it was never going to work for one reason and one word: tribalism.
Yeah.
Lack of it. But you can't. You can't. And that's what they're finding a little bit in New Zealand, even with the success of their Super Rugby teams, right? If you ditch tribalism, you basically ditch the reason for people to go and watch it, which is why the Shoot Shield is undergoing a renaissance, getting bigger crowds than a lot of Super Rugby games. And you go down to Rat Park, which is a walk away from where I am now, and you see the success that they've had, but the sheer love that people have for Rat Park itself, and for the Warringah Rats, and you know, the universities, Randwicks, and all those sort of clubs, because it's tribal. And the NRC was never going to work because it wasn't tribal. I would actually like to see an interstate club competition at the end of the season of the top 4 teams from Sydney and 2 from Brisbane or whatever it is, and you know, 1 from Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, whatever, and play a competition at the end of the season where you've still got those top clubs playing. And what I'd do is go a little bit further. I would then say, and here's a pool of Super Rugby players that don't play for any of those top 8 clubs, right? But they'll go into a pool, and you will be able to bid for the two of those players to come and play with your club, right? So that gives them more rugby and at a higher level. So there'd be a bit of excitement. You could have a television event, a little bit like the IPL, about which of these players is going to go to your club and what have you. I would do that. And I think that would work because it would be tribal.
Yeah. It'll engage a lot more fans. Just got to have a look. They tried to make it all work with the NRC twice, and people just don't buy into it. Like North Harbour Rays, like I'm not putting shit on North Harbour Rays, but you just got to look at it. And they're not a club, so nobody really wants North Harbour Rays. But either a North fan or a Warringah fan or a Manly fan, they're not even all going to get on the same page together. So
no, and that was proven in the NRL when I first came to the NRL, and they were still going through the pain of amalgamated clubs, right? And I remember going down to Manly Oval, because it was Manly and Norths, and there were hardly any North supporters would go down there, and the few that were there used to get stuck. I used to go in the crowd and get their feedback, and they'd get stuck into me about the fact that there was no Norths anymore. And they're talking about expansion into Brisbane, right? Which of rugby league, and I'm on rugby league, right? And I can't see that working other than it's going to dilute the support for a Brisbane club. If they're going to expand, why wouldn't you get Norths to go up to the Central Coast? They've got a ground up there, huge rugby league population. They've got a leagues club across the road. Yep. Why not do that rather than another club in Brisbane? And then I saw Rebo's comments in the paper today about, perhaps some Sydney clubs have got to relocate. Well, that's what AFL did, and they've done it successfully because you have to look at the Swans and the Brisbane Lions. You could do that, but before I did any of that, I would look at saying to North, why don't you come back into this competition on the Central Coast?
Well, that's a logical step. We've got the stadium, like a quality class stadium. We've got supporter base. They've got everything. You only have to move them, so and you have to be located there. It's a simple geographical setup. So.
Absolutely, but I don't run anything at the moment, mate. So, I suppose I've got that. Well, I've always said what I think, but I've got that sort of a little bit of room to be able to say, well, this is what I think I'd do, and that would give Norths back an identity as well, which is what they craved. I mean, I was there with the Rabbitohs. I went along, sat with George Piggins. And I had an old, from a New Zealand rugby days, Steinlager jacket.
Yeah.
And it happened to be green with red piping. I didn't realize until I got out of the car, but it was too cold not to wear it, so I wore it. Interestingly enough, as I walked up the grandstand with George, I got absolutely slammed. And George got on the thing and he said, listen, at least he's turned up, Yeah. And I kept the party line, right? I kept because, and I've always done that. If somebody makes a decision and I'm told to, like the board, which did, South is going, right? Then I'm behind that. I can't say privately what I think.
Yeah.
What disappointed me about the fact that News Limited, was I didn't find out until they had actually done it and announced it. Their own chief executive wasn't told that they had capitulated and let Souths back in. And that was the beginning of the end for me with that organisation, because I wasn't going to tolerate that sort of behaviour.
Did Ian Frickberg have anything to do with the fact? I know you told me how he got you across into the NRL position in the first place as CEO. Did he manage much of it after that, or?
Oh no, that wasn't Fricker's bag. Frickberg was a genius at selling broadcasting rights, and a genius at it, mate. And he was one of the five of us. There was myself, Frickberg, and then the chairman of South African, New Zealand, and Australian rugby unions. and Frickers, you know, he was immense. You know, he's a really big, larger than life character, person and character. But no, he wasn't involved in the administration of rugby league. But he certainly was helpful in getting. We got a really good deal when I was there, and Frickers helped us get that as time was a lot more, and News Limited paid a lot more for rights of a competition that they actually owned. So and Frickberg did that deal.
Yep. So at the moment, I look at rugby as haven't been a player coach, haven't been an administrator in rugby yet, probably thankfully. But I look at it as a lot of people in rugby union in the board level now and player levels that feel that rugby union owes them something, and they think they should be paid when, like you said, the standard of their quality and play. And you've got to consider factors such as rugby union doesn't generate as much money as it did to pay players really below a professional level. There's people who think they're entitled to money that is probably not there. Do you think that's a fair assessment, or do you think that the game should focus more on an amateur setup and only worry about professionals at the top level?
They've got to get the balance right between the professional and the community game, right? The big problem in '95, when the IRB, as it was then, the game was open. Not that the game was professional at certain levels. So when I got to Wales, you got 6 division clubs in the Welsh players, because they said, well, the game's open. Now that was at the time in Wales, that's like paying me to play golf. It's bizarre. Why would you pay to play at that level? And hopefully that's not happening here in Australia down into the subbies level. But no, I don't think it's an issue of entitlement. I think it's an issue of the players saying, well, there's money there and I can get paid, you know, and I can be a rugby player. I just contend that right around the world, there's not enough players for the number of teams worldwide.
Yeah. So you were instrumental. Yeah, I was just going to say you were instrumental in helping Penrith come into the Shoot Shield and Canberra, Newcastle as well. So that's a really strong thing that you did, and that's helped obviously kick off the Brumbies and everything. But how do you engage? How do you get Penrith to be better? Like, they're struggling now, so what would you do to help strengthen them?
Okay, so it was always going to be a difficult one, Penrith, and I guess there's a large Pacific Island community out in that part of the Western. So they're going to form the nucleus of anything that you do out there. Once again, at that level, it's going to come down to how much. I don't know if there's a salary cap in the Shoot Shield or whatever it is, but you know, because there was no professional rugby at that level at all while I was running New South Wales Rugby. It only came in after we did that deal, and by then I was with New Zealand. But it's, you know, it is such a difficult one.
Yeah.
But here's what I think about real rugby. That is a game that could be played by rugby league schools, and they would be able to play it a lot more easily than the current 15-a-side game. Yeah. And we've got something in New South Wales called the Waratah Shield.
Yeah.
Where the Waratah Shield was for private schools and public schools, and anybody could enter into it, right? But it's fallen on really. But if you were to use real rugby, the Waratah Shield, you only need 12 players plus a couple of reserves. So therefore, it's going to be easier to get teams together. The rules are a lot easier for these players to understand. And there's some things in there about goal line kickouts and all that stuff. So I've simplified the rules.
Yeah.
You could actually then start to get rugby into state schools.
Yeah.
Now, if you could get it as a taster into the clubs out the west, you know, surrounding Penn, so that you gave them a taste and they say, geez, I like the look of this. You know,
Yep.
perhaps Penrith third grade or fourth grade might play rugby rules, and then they go up to 15-a-side rugby.
Yep.
You then out of the rugby rules, you'll find some players that actually could make it in the 15-a-side game. And that's why I think real rugby, has got a role to play in actually combating rugby league and also Aussie rules. Because we've got to remember that out in the West, there's Aussie rules as well, and they've made some quite big inroads out there using a lot of money. Rugby doesn't have the money. Rugby league has the money, and they also have the history out there. So as a rugby community, you've got to say, what is going to work? We haven't got the money. We haven't got the history. Let's look at it a different way. Let's say, okay, we don't like Moffett, and I know they don't like me because I say what I think. You know, Roger Davis won't be ringing me up anytime soon after what I just said about him. But, you know, real rugby's got something. Perhaps we should look at it. Perhaps we could make that a fourth grade competition, you know, where they don't have to have 23 players or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? You know.
Absolutely. Like I look at it, you could quite easily drop a centre from just to start picking things apart. You could drop the centre and obviously lose the two flankers. And I don't think that's going to might affect Richie McCall, because he wouldn't have been coming in from the side of the scrum to get into the front row behind his hooker and stuff like that, which looked like it happened a lot when you look at the aerial visions. But it just changed the dynamics. That rugby needs to do something, because at the moment it's just teetering along, and it's going strong in subbies rugby, and then it starts to get higher and the quality's not there, it falls apart, and there's no community engagement. The administrators keep everything secret.
Subbies is perhaps a good example. You know, is it called first Kentwell Cup still in subbies? I'm not sure.
Yes, it is. Yep.
You know, Kentwell Cup. So you wouldn't have it in Kentwell Cup, but perhaps when you get down to the lower cups, you might say, well, let's give this real rugby a go, and see, you know, whether that's suitable for these guys. They only train once a week, right? They want a good run around. They want, they don't want to be bloody going through all of this collision stuff. Perhaps give it a go down there. I mean, look, I think it'll find its place, you know, in rugby. At the moment, we're getting ready to play it in Ireland. We're getting ready to play it in England, where France is quite interested. Funnily enough, one of the places that it could take off is Canada, because got a guy, an ex-international referee, Martin Lewis, Welsh as it happens, but he lives in Halifax in Nova Scotia.
Yep.
And he's full on behind this, and so is the Nova Scotian Rugby Union. They would like to see it trialed, and they want to trial it across Canada because they think that it would be really good for Canadian rugby.
Yep.
You know, and so it's going to be horses for courses. You take Sri Lanka, for example. Now, you know, Dilip Kumar is a very good friend of mine. He's obviously originally from Sri Lanka, used to be the chairman of Australian Rugby.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him the other day, and I said, look, you know, from what I'm reading, Sri Lanka is going to be contracting to 7-a-side from 15-a-side. They don't have the size of players to play the 15-a-side game as it's played now, which would be a shame. In Sri Lanka, they get 25,000 people to watch the two biggest schools play. 25,000 people in Sri Lanka, right?
Yep.
And I'm saying to Dilip, you know, real rugby's got to be an option because it keeps them within the ethos of rugby. It keeps the authenticity of rugby. It's not sevens where, you know, what sevens is. Well, sevens is what it is. Olympic sport, terrific, really great. Yep. But real rugby is a real game of rugby.
Yeah.
But it is a real game of rugby more and more for players of all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
And it's 30 minutes each way, and it's 12 players, and it's almost wham bam, thank you, ma'am. You know, it's
yep.
And I think the parents are going to like it.
Yeah. One thing I like about real rugby, when you told me about it when we chatted last time, It was 7-point tries, no penalty
Yep.
goals, and 2-point conversions. That's good because it is going to encourage running rugby. It is going to encourage people to try to score tries, to get in and out of the breakdown quickly, one set scrums instead of 10 of them in a row. And it just brings back some excitement. People have to work athletically better and skills-wise better across the board, reading the game, ball hand skills, eye hand coordination, and all this sort of stuff, making decisions. Because you got more space, you got more room, and you can pick out stragglers easy. If you're fit, you'll find holes where you can cause a lot of damage. So,
Yeah,
tries.
it's actually 7 points for a try, 2 for a penalty, no conversions, and no drop goals.
Yeah.
So what that means is that the try is worth 3.5 times the penalty.
Yeah, that's good. That's what you want. Because I've seen too many games. I love rugby, but I don't know how many times I've seen the Wallabies lose games playing in the Northern Hemisphere 15-12 or something, and we scored 2 tries, and Scotland will kick 5 penalty goals or something, because that's just what happens. So
yeah, so if you had our scoring system, even if they just used the scoring system, in a situation like that, your team scoring 2 tries would still kick 5 penalties, because it would be 14-10.
that's right. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing for rugby, but just over the whole concept of it is good. So I like the idea of it. So I like it. They don't want to encourage people taking drop goals as well, because that can, although I've done a few in my time, so it doesn't help or speed or promote the game up anymore either. So
did you get did you follow the Zinni mode? Did you, kicking field goals?
Yeah, I've done that. So I won a game for Hawkesbury Valley, won 3-0 against, I think it was King's Old Boys, that kicked the field goal from about 25 metres out. Got blasted for it until we got the win. Then everyone thought it was the best thing ever. So no one complained about that. So they didn't like that I took the fullback out with a big hit, but field goal was all good. So
yeah.
But no, it's good. So in the management of the game, in the different roles you've had, what do you think your legacy is you left, particularly for New South Wales rugby?
I think just my overall legacy is that I've never been afraid to speak my mind. There could be more of that. But I've also left the rugby unions that I've run in better shape, right? New South Wales was in debt when I got there. It wasn't when I left. New Zealand was heading into debt. And, by the time I left, it had $68 million in the bank, and similarly with Welsh Rugby. But in terms of New South Wales, it's difficult because I was there in 95, and I think whatever legacy I might have left there were, so many other people have been in there and had a go. I mean, they've had such a turnover of as I said before, coach and chief executives let go, but the boards go on forever. So I don't know if I left any legacy there, really. Certainly not a lasting one.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much dissatisfaction now with New South Wales rugby. From what I talk to a lot of rugby people here. There's got to be a clear out. There's got to be a new beginning. Get some new young people in there with good ideas. Get rugby people in there.
Yeah.
And preferably not from just one club or an association with one club. Get a good spread of rugby people on the board. I don't know about the new chief executive because I've not heard much about him. He didn't have so he's got an opportunity to prove himself. But I like what's happening at Australian rugby at the moment, with McLennan and also with Andy Marinos there. And I know Andy very well. And I think at Australian rugby, but the biggest problem they've got in Australian rugby is that nobody plays the game anymore. Yeah. And that's going to have an effect on how much you can sell your broadcasting rights. And they're just about to lose Qantas, which is going to be, so they've got to find different ones. And then they're starting to flirt with the idea of this outside investment. And New Zealand is doing that as well, and they've done it already up in the Northern Hemisphere. The word of caution I'd say about that is that these investors in these, companies are not benefactors, mate. They're not going to give you a bunch of money just because they like you. They're going to want a return on their investment. And to get the return on investment, they'll give you a chance perhaps for 12 months. They might even give you a bit longer runway than that. But at some point in time, they're going to say, if you continue down this road, we're going to lose a truckload of money, and we're not going to do that. So you're going to have to do some. We don't like the constant reference to head injuries and the litigation that might come. We don't like the way the game is being played and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that could bring more pressure if they go down that road than they necessarily need. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You've got to look at every option for getting money into the game. But if it's got, News Limited, for example, they put billions of dollars into the game here over the 10-year period, more 20, that they were brought for Australian rugby.
Yeah.
And millions of dollars wasted on trades. They saw millions of dollars wasted on having too many teams as well, saying we just want product. So then they went, they changed the Super Rugby. It was never authentic after they went away from 12. Saw millions and millions of dollars wasted.
Yeah.
Now, these capitalists are going to look at that. They're going to say, well, that ain't going to work for us. We want to be able to make money, but if we want to offload this at some stage, we want to get a good capital gain out of it. Yep. And that's the other issue. Company, I can't remember the name of it. They were involved in Formula One. They bought Formula One for £1 billion and sold it for $4 billion.
Yeah.
Right. So they're in the business of making money.
Yeah.
So just be careful. My one word, I don't need to give guys like McLennan that advice, but just for the people, the average person in the street, they've just got to be careful, because guys are going to want their pound of flesh.
Yeah, you can sell your soul and everything you've worked at to establish the game, and it will change rapidly if you get the wrong people in charge of it, because a dollar's a dollar to them, and that's a money-making venture. So they're not invested.
You don't want to lose control. You don't want to lose control of the game. Yeah. And I, you look at the venture capitalist up there that's taken a slice of the English Premiership, Rugby Premiership, and also the Six Nations, and you sort of say, yep, that's good. But what happens when they're not getting a return? They're going to say, we're either out or we want a bigger so that we can control what's going on.
Yeah. Happens in world soccer. Just got to look at Manchester City. Sheiks own that club over there from the Middle East. As soon as that stops making money for them, or they get bored with the toys, they pull the money out, and the club will probably be in a very difficult financial position, and they're going to dissipate very quickly, unfortunately for them. So,
but City's a different kettle of fish, because Abramovich hanging on with Chelsea is the real, because Chelsea haven't done that well since he's owned them, and my team's Tottenham, and the quicker they get rid of them, did you hear that?
No, I missed some of that. Sorry.
Oh no, I just said my team is Tottenham. I think I was a Tottenham supporter before I was born. And the quicker they get rid of Mourinho, the better.
Oh, they've got him. Like he's treating.
Do you know what he's got though? He's got a £30 million guarantee if they sack him.
I'd love to know how these guys get this stuff built into their contracts, because I follow Glasgow Rangers, And we just won our first competition in 10 years and been through all sorts of turmoil and the snake oil salesman telling us, oh, do this, do that. And we have people come and try to get what they can out of the club and turn that into a bit of a basket case. And it's taken 10 years to turn it around.
Yeah, but you've got one of my very favourite players, even though I'm a Spurs, in Gerard, managing them. You know,
he's very good. He's a very professional operator. So
great player too.
Yeah, I reckon he could pull the jersey on now and still do the job, and he'd be punching up around 38 to 40 years old or something like that. So I'm not sure I could say that when I was 38 to 40, but I could still even keep up with blokes around the paddock. So in low-level soccer. Anyway, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it. It's been very insightful, and I'm sure you haven't upset anybody too much in rugby now that already doesn't have the nose out of joint because they know that there's issues and people are looking strongly at them. So in particular,
my overriding desire is to see Australian rugby back to where it needs to be. I'm not, I don't say back to where it belongs because, you know, that's something that you earn, but where it needs to be, and playing Australian style rugby. That's what I'd like to see. And I think they can do it. It's going to take a while, but you know, if they get everything right and understand this fundamental principle that you can't build a house without foundations, and the foundations is the amateur game.
That's right. Yep. There needs to be more emphasis on building the amateur game and the schoolboy level and continue to work up. So.
Okay, mate.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, mate.
We'll chat again soon. I'll be uploading this onto Duckman TV on YouTube and on Facebook later today. So thank you for listening, and thanks for your time.